You know, you wake up, you haven't even gotten out of bed yet, and you reach for your phone, you open a news app, or maybe you just scroll through a social feed, and within like 30 seconds, your stomach just drops. There is this sudden, really heavy sense of instability. I mean, we all know that feeling, right? It's this pervasive low-grade hum of anxiety that just seems to be the default background noise of modern life.
It really is. I mean, we are constantly exposed to these huge fluctuations right now. You've got unpredictable markets, highly volatile political climates, cultural norms that, they seem to shift basically overnight.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
Totally. And suddenly, these societal systems that we implicitly trusted to be, rock solid, they're looking incredibly fragile. And the thing is, that fragility doesn't just stay out there in the world, it seeps inward.
And that feeling is exactly what we are dissecting in today's deep dive. We're looking at this fascinating set of notes from Ron W Rathbun.
It's a really incredible piece of source material.
It is. So our mission today is to essentially unravel the mechanics of why we feel so insecure and reactive in today's unpredictable world. And more importantly, we want to map out the precise internal roadmap that Rathbun suggests for finding genuine stability.
Exactly, because we are not just talking about abstract philosophy here.
No, not at all. We are getting right into the practical, biological, and psychological mechanics of how your brain handles panic, control, and socialization. I promise you, by the end of this conversation, you're going to look at your own distractions and frustrations in a completely different light.
Well, Rathbun makes a crucial point right out of the gate in these notes. He argues that the outward insecurity people are feeling so intensely right now stems directly from an unstable form of socialization.
Unstable socialization.
Think about the economy and politics. These aren't just abstract concepts for us. Rathbun points out that we have this deeply rooted fear of losing our sense of self in society.
That makes so much sense.
Right. So your intellect looks at all this instability in the outside world, and it hits this terrifying realization. The people, the institutions, the systems that you thought were in control of everything, well, you start to realize they absolutely are not.
Yeah, the people steering the ship don't actually have their hands on the wheel.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit, because for the intellect, which is essentially, an information processing machine designed to find patterns and predict outcomes, that lack of control is just an absolute nightmare.
Oh, it's the ultimate threat.
Right. Because we are social creatures. When our socialization feels unstable, it feels like a literal survival threat to us. Our minds, individually, they have to figure out how to process this massive instability. But Rathbun highlights where the process breaks down.
Yeah, the core problem.
If a person doesn't know how to consciously accept and process this chaotic information with their mind, they just default to their ego.
And that default is where the chaos really multiplies. I mean, think about the intellect as the manager of your daily reality. When it looks at the world and sees economic instability or social unrest, it realizes the car is swerving.
It's like you're furiously turning a steering wheel that isn't even connected to the tires.
That is a perfect analogy. The intellect realizes socialization is unstable, but instead of stepping back and assessing the vehicle, it panics. It just grips that useless wheel tighter. It triggers this preemptive response to try and prepare for the instability.
Even though it has literally no idea what that preparation should look like.
None at all. It's trying to self-protect against forces it cannot control. And why this matters so much, mechanically speaking, is that this panic leads to completely unconscious or subconscious actions.
Like lashing out at people.
Exactly. People start self-justifying their behaviors as okay when they are actively harming or affecting others. They just completely lack the foresight to see it's a terrible idea because they're stuck in that panic mode.
If defaulting to the ego causes all this unconscious harm, we really need to understand the mechanics of why the intellect hands over the keys to the ego in the first place.
Right, the internal chain of command.
Yeah. And the notes introduce Rathbun's concept of the second point. Let's break down what that actually means functionally.
Sure. The second point is basically your internal backup system. So when the intellect cannot open to the mind, when it hits a wall trying to process all this global instability, the ego becomes its second point.
It falls back on the ego.
Yes. And Rathbun makes it very clear that the ego is significantly less evolved than the intellect.
So the intellect defers its processing power to a much less evolved system.
Exactly. And because the ego's primary tool is basically just fight or flight, it treats everything as a life or death situation. It treats attacks on our beliefs or our way of being as though they were literal physical attacks.
Okay, wait. So what does this all mean for us on a Tuesday afternoon? I mean, I have to push back a little here. Isn't a fight or flight response supposed to keep us safe? Like, evolutionarily speaking, that panic button kept us alive.
What's fascinating here is that, yes, it kept us alive from predators, but the problem is the ego is misidentifying modern threats.
Because it's less evolved.
Exactly. We have these compartments inside us where we store our beliefs, our political opinions, our sense of identity. When one of those compartments gets challenged by, say, a news article, the ego gets triggered.
I see.
It instantly sends a massive panic signal back to the intellect, flooding your body with fight-or-flight chemicals, even when there is absolutely no actual physical danger.
Oh, man. It's like having a top-tier home security system that blasts the sirens and calls the SWAT team just because a leaf blew across the lawn.
That is exactly it.
The ego just doesn't have the awareness to not trigger a massive fight-or-flight response over a simple difference of opinion. It just sees the leaf and screams, "Intruder."
Precisely, and that's why we feel so drained and reactive all the time.
Okay, so if the ego is essentially a faulty security system causing all this false panic, how do we fix it? How do we rewire the intellect to connect to something better?
Well, according to Rathbun, the solution is teaching the intellect to open to the conscious mind.
Instead of defaulting to the ego.
Right, and when this happens, a really profound structural shift occurs internally. The conscious mind, which Rathbun notes is much more evolved than the intellect, actually becomes the primary point.
Okay.
And then the intellect steps back and becomes the mind's second point. This restructuring is taught through a practice called Kelee Meditation.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. It sounds like a massive operating system update for your brain. You are essentially demoting the ego and promoting the conscious mind to CEO.
That's a great way to look at it.
It allows you to learn to see from the mind, rather than operating from a place of not understanding. But Rathbun notes a big hurdle here, right?
Yeah, the skepticism.
Right. When the Kelee is introduced to people, they are naturally skeptical. I mean, we've all been sold so many self-help methods that just straight up don't work. So the Kelee often gets unfairly lumped in with, like, delusion or escapism.
And you can't blame people for that skepticism. The Kelee isn't about escaping reality. Rathbun states that the ultimate evolutionary goal here is for everything to end up being consciousness understood by a one-pointed mind.
A one-pointed mind. That sounds incredibly focused.
It is. Having that one-pointed mind allows for what he calls non-triggering preparation instead of panicked reactions. It literally gives you a way to improve your life by actually giving you a method.
Which is huge, because people always ask, why can't people just get their act together?
Right, you hear that constantly, but it's simply because until they learn this structural shift, they literally do not have a way to help themselves. They are biologically trapped in that ego-driven loop.
Man, that is a really compassionate way to look at the people around us who are struggling. But to maintain this new one-pointed mind, we have to eliminate the static, right?
Mm-hmm.
The stuff that constantly tries to pull us back into the ego.
Yes, namely the endless distractions of the world.
Yeah, and Rathbun goes deep into this. He notes that everyone experiences this emptiness inside them. It's this deep need that absolutely cannot be fulfilled by another person.
And because of all the worldly distractions bombarding us, people really struggle to make a true nature connection of life.
What does that mean, practically?
It means that when people get distracted from what they can't feel inside themselves, they self-create offsets in the outside world.
Offsets. So let me ask you, the listener, to really reflect on this for a second. Are our modern habits, like doom scrolling for hours or obsessing over political news, are those just offsets we create to avoid feeling that internal emptiness?
Absolutely they are. And Rathbun emphasizes a tough truth about those offsets. These distractions literally go nowhere.
You just spin your wheels.
Exactly. The world cannot sustain you because it simply doesn't know how to make you feel yourself. It's external to your true nature.
So what's the daily practice to fight that?
We must check in with our minds throughout the day. We have to actively study the nature of detachment from distraction. And specifically, detaching from things that are immediately affecting us in the moment.
Like stepping back when you feel that rush of outrage at a headline.
Right. Because unless you are opening to the present moment, which is the only place you can actually experience your own evolution, you are living in the past.
Because the future is totally unknown.
Precisely. The ego panics over the future, so it pulls you out of the present. But when we free ourselves from distraction, we finally learn to see what the distraction was actually hiding.
Wow.
Anything new just becomes an opening to learn, which leads to genuine understanding. It's never a good feeling to feel like you aren't progressing, you know?
Yeah, nobody wants to feel stuck. But once you strip away the distractions, and establish your mind as the primary point. How does this actually change the way you interact with society?
It changes it completely.
Because doesn't focusing entirely on how we feel about our own lives individually rather than the things going on around us, doesn't that sound a bit isolating? Or even selfish when society is clearly struggling?
I get why it sounds that way, but Rathbun is very clear on this. There is a distinct difference between self-responsibility, which is you unto yourself, and responsibility with others.
Okay, how does he define responsibility with others?
It consists of non-interfering in their lives.
Non-interfering.
Yes, we can help people, certainly, but we absolutely do not decide their actions for them. You must be an independent example of someone who has helped themselves.
Ah, so you lead by just being centered.
Exactly. Being that example inspires others to study the basic principles of the Kelee and see that it is real. Because doing something from a place that doesn't feel good to you does not promote something that feels good to another.
Your strength flows through you, not someone else.
Right. It's the exact opposite of selfish. Think about it. When collective decisions are made in the wrong direction by uncentered, panicked people, everyone pays the price.
Yeah, we see that happening everywhere right now.
But by being centered in yourself at all times, wherever you are, you become a contributing factor to society, not a detriment. The ultimate endpoint is living harmoniously within ourselves and promoting the common good of the world.
By steering clear of, or just learning from, the disharmony around us.
Exactly. You don't get sucked into it.
This has been such a paradigm shift. Let me briefly recap the journey we just took on this deep dive.
Please do.
We started by looking at how the intellect panics over worldly instability, specifically around socialization and the economy. We saw how it defaults to the less evolved ego's false fight-or-flight alarms. And then we discovered how Kelee Meditation flips that hierarchy, making the conscious mind the primary point. We explored how abandoning those hollow distractions allows us to face our internal emptiness.
Which is the only way to actually evolve in the present moment.
Exactly. Ultimately allowing us to be a non-interfering, harmonious force for the common good.
It's powerful stuff. And, I want to leave the listener with a final thought to mull over. Building on Rathbun's assertion that everything we are affected by is an opportunity to learn.
I love that. What is it?
The next time you feel a sudden, intense spike of defensiveness over a completely non-physical issue, like maybe a disagreement at work or a harsh comment online.
That stomach-dropping feeling we talked about at the very beginning.
Yes, that exact feeling. I want you to pause and ask yourself, is this an actual threat? Or is this just the exact moment my intellect threw its hands up and let my ego take the wheel?
Oh, that is such a great question to catch yourself in the moment.
Right, and ask yourself what would happen if, in that exact second, you simply chose to observe the panic instead of acting on it.
Wow, that is brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been incredibly eye-opening. And to you listening, thank you for joining us. Keep learning, keep observing your own mind. We'll catch you next time.